Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 3. We are steadily moving along, reaching the halfway point. As you're accessing this video, you should have received or will be receiving very shortly your grades for week 1. Some things that you need to note and adjust as you move forward in the course, especially related to your written assignments. Go into Waypoint, review the margin notes in the paper. I go through, I try to offer help with content, your lessons, formatting, grammar, etc. I also pose questions to help you think a little bit deeper about your revisions. And some of it is just things that I notice related to good practice, especially for those of you who are in the classroom. So be looking for those notes in the margin, and feel free to ask me questions about them if there's something you don't understand. As I find examples of other students' work, I try to post that, so look for those examples. And they may or may not be from this course, and they may not be perfect in terms of writing or formatting. However, these students have the right idea and are approaching the assignment correctly. They are looking at the revisions. We're seeing the program learning outcomes. We're seeing the 21st century skills. That information has been clearly identified, clearly articulated. There's no question about the intention of the paper and their area of focus. So look for those things. Hopefully, this is the last time I have to mention this in this course. At this stage, I shouldn't have to discuss it at all. Citations and referencing are not only critical, they're required. You cannot at any point take someone else's work. It's theft, it's plagiarism. Warnings have already been issued, and or academic dishonesty paperwork has been filed already in the course. You need to use your APA manual. You need to ask for help. You need to cite your original work. As any outside sources, if you didn't create the information, you need to have a source. It's that simple. And you may see that my voice has changed a little bit when I talk about this. I say it's my mom voice combined with my teacher voice. This is a non-negotiable, and this could put your program in jeopardy if you are not doing this correctly. The last thing you want is the last course of your program to end up with 2 letters of academic dishonesty, which means you automatically get a 0 and fail the course. Don't let this happen. It's much easier just to add the citation and reference. You have to be very thoughtful and very mindful about it. You can't just, oops, I made a mistake. That's not okay at this stage of your program. As you are identifying changes to your lessons, highlight those or put them in bold so I can very clearly see what you had before to how you're making those changes. That will help me not only find it, but I'm better able to give you points. And any place that you can get credit, I want to be able to give that to you. So make sure it's easy for me to be able to give you the credit. Moving into this week, technology and communication is our focus, and in particular, the way it affects assessment, data analysis, and it also requires teachers to be critical and creative thinking. And it's also something we have to consider, how do we embed these things for our students. So we have 2 primary weekly outcomes. The first is evaluating the role of sharing assessments, rubrics, 21st century practices with our colleagues. And this is very interesting because these are skills we expect for students to demonstrate, but teachers have a very hard time putting them into practice with colleagues. We can intellectually explain why it's valuable, but much of it revolves around school culture and how competitive the leadership has made your building. If teachers are able to witness the gains that all students can make from collaborative discussions and assessments and so on, the practice of 21st century skills and using those becomes much easier. And teachers feel safer sharing data and other classroom practices. So this is something to be looking for, and when you interview, if you're looking at a different school or trying to get your first job, That's a question maybe you need to ask. How is data shared? And to try and get an insight into the culture of the building to see if it's a good fit for you. The second learning outcome is to reflect on the impact of digital technology tools on using and sharing information. As most of you are aware, there are confidentiality laws, rules, expectations when it comes to sharing student data. However, many times there's confusion, and typically educators err on the side of caution and over-apply those laws and think they can't share anything, and that's not the case. Educators are supposed to share individual student information when it includes academics, behavior, other necessary information. It could be the student is homeless, something like that. IEPs, of course, with the personnel who are directly involved with the student. This information should not be shared or discussed with everyone in the building. For example, if I teach Sarah, who has an IEP, and so does the rest of my teaching team, we can share anything and everything about Sarah, her modifications, the teaching strategies we're using, any needs, progress, communications with parents, and so on. But if Sarah does not have PE this semester, none of us should discuss Sarah with the PE teacher unless a specific issue arises directly involving a PE teacher. For example, the PE teacher had to reprimand Sarah for behavior in the hallway and needs contact information for the parent. Or maybe that PE teacher is now in a mentoring role for Sarah. So the PE teacher needs information to be able to help Sarah meet her, whatever the goals might be. None of the information is a discussion for the coffee room, or if you're lucky to have a lounge, or in the cafeteria. The students should not be discussed outside of particular meetings or where other students can't hear. Class data as a whole or individual data, as long as you don't identify the student, can be shared internally with school personnel. So you can have a meeting with the math department and say, I have a struggling student. I don't know how to help her with, and then whatever the issue is. You should not say, Sarah is having trouble with. You can just leave. The name doesn't matter. It's the issue where you need help. You can say your entire third period did great on questions 1 through 4, but struggled with numbers 5 and 6. Perfectly fine. Parents should only receive data or information related to their child. Period. That's it. There's no exceptions. This includes discipline information as well. So, for example, if Johnny and Billy get into a fight, I can tell Billy's parents about what Billy did, his role in the event, what Billy's consequence would be. I cannot discuss Johnny by name or share Johnny's consequence with Billy's parents. So when I'm talking to Billy's parents, I can't say Billy got into a fight with Johnny. I have to say Billy got into a fight with another student, and so on and so forth. Teachers often let much of this information slip in front of substitutes or other regular visitors in your building. That can get you into trouble. Substitutes only need to know lesson information if students have particular issues. For example, Jose has limited English, so they know that they'll have to help that child. Medical issues. Susie has a seizure disorder. They need to know protocol for dealing with that. If the student should work alone, or this student needs adult proximity, that kind of thing. But beyond what a substitute or visitor would need to know for that particular day only, they don't need that information. So just be careful of that. So those are some things when talking about the ethical and the confidentiality issues related to sharing data. This week, instead of delving into the text as I've done in the first 2 weeks, I thought it might be helpful to share some of how my school approaches sharing data and some technology applications, just to give you some things to think about, or maybe something you haven't considered that's happening in the building where you work. So first, for data sharing, Every Thursday we have collaborative planning, and this means that every teacher from a grade level reports to our collaboration station meeting room during planning. And the exception to that is on the second to last Thursday of each month, our teachers have vertical planning before school, where they meet as a subject area. So 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teachers will all meet together for language arts in one room. All of the math teachers, 6th, 7th, and 8th, meet in another room, and so on. Our collaboration room, or meeting room, is organized and grouped into subject areas. So there's a table for science, a table for social studies, a table for math. We have foreign language taught at our school, so they have a table, and then our language arts. And there's a computer monitor, and we call it an octopus, where all of the teachers can plug in, and so anything on their screen can be projected for everyone to see at any time. So this makes it easier to be able to see maybe a specific question, or let's look at the data. So it helps those of us, like myself, who are more visual, and it aids in the discussion. We don't have to wonder what everybody's talking about. We can see it. During collaboration, we focus on high leverage activities. So we're not looking at things like, let's change the pacing calendar. What video are we going to use, or any of those things. Those are considered lower leverage activities that can be done at different times. High leverage activities include things like designing or revising common unit assessments, which we administer through a system called All In Learning, where we use a document reader to scan tests, like bubble sheets. They go in immediately. Teachers have, the kids, before they walk away from your desk, can know what their score is. So this allows us to identify the very specific questions and learning trends immediately. So reteaching can happen before we move on to the next unit, before district assessments happen, before those high stakes end of the year tests happen as well. Teachers also create common formative assessments that are given about every 2 weeks. It changes a little bit based on the unit and based on the subject area. But we use this data to separate students into reteaching and extension groups for appropriate activities depending on what they need. And those groups change based on the formative data. So I could be in a reteaching group this time, but next time I might be in the extension group. It just depends upon my level of mastery. The way our schedule is set up is every day after first period, there's a 30-minute block, and we call this CQI time, which stands for Continuous Quality Instruction. And this is where we do our differentiation, our reteaching and extending. And on Monday, students go to their first period to receive CQI time. On Tuesday, they go to second period, Wednesday, third period, Thursday, fourth, Friday, fifth. So every single class period for every subject area, every student will receive help in those areas. So it's not only getting help in math. They'll go, they may have, if they have science fourth period, they'll get either reteaching or extension on Thursday for their science class. This helps us address student needs immediately, and we've seen huge gains over the past several years. So this isn't something where we think it's working, we know it's working, we have data to support it. And during collaboration, once we have district assessments, like midterms or semester finals, we also analyze our results during collaborative planning, and we look from macro to micro. So we're looking at where do we stand in the district, where do we stand in related to all the middle schools, where do we stand related to our cluster, where are we looking at student groupings and going into individual questions. And this helps us revise our instruction now and for the next year. So if we know in a certain part or certain unit we used a particular teaching strategy and that was super effective, we want to see, can we incorporate that teaching strategy again in the unit we're on now or in one that's upcoming. And know to continue using that strategy next year for the unit in which it was successful. So those are just some ways that we share data and use that to help help students. The second part, I'm going to talk about is technology applications. And one of the unique courses that are in our building is digital arts. And the teacher uses the traditional visual art standards required by the district, the same as, we also have I'll call it a regular arts class. But most of the work in digital arts is done through Photoshop and also in our learning management platform, which we call eClass. And eClass is very similar to the Canvas platform that you're using for this course, but so it allows teachers to work allows students to work in the teacher's online class, access grades, see calendars, and all of that information. Every teacher in the building has an eClass page, and I'll do a separate video to show you the digital arts course page just so you understand. It will help you understand the technology that's being used just in that one class. So students in this art class use technology on a bunch of different levels. So some examples, they upload photos from their phones or other digital sources. They research artworks related to whatever the class topic is. They master many levels of Photoshop. So, for example, one of the activities they might do is take a well-known artwork, say like Scream. They have to take Scream, if you've ever seen it, hopefully you know what that is, and they have to put Scream into a different context to show what's making Scream scream. And so they really have to think about context. One student found a picture of a big tidal wave or a tsunami. It was a huge body of water. And he put Scream inside the tidal wave, and then he said he was replicating what the people in Houston felt like when Hurricane Harvey was coming through. So you can see how he was really aware of what the artist intended from the painting and then attached that to something happening now. Students give and receive feedback once artworks are published inside the eClass. They answer inquiry questions for the unit. They take notes electronically in their Google accounts and upload in eClass. They work collaboratively on projects through Google or eClass, or lockers in there that allow them to do it. They take traditional multiple choice and constructed responses electronically and receive rubric-based feedback from the teacher. And the rubrics also include all of the International Baccalaureate criteria that we're required to use in our school. Parents and students have access to all of the assignment directions, rubrics, calendars, expectations, etc. All of that's inside, all done digitally. And I'm sure there are many more things that I'm leaving out, but you can see the idea of how this teacher has taken creativity, innovation, and technology and blended them together, and they work beautifully. It's amazing. I wish I had a class like that going through school. It would have been amazing. And hopefully her great work will inspire you to think beyond what you are already doing. And again, look for a little separate video so you can see. I'll do a screencast that shows what her course looks like. Also in the announcement, look for a few extras. I asked colleagues to share how they use assessment to guide teaching and learning. And so there are a variety of perspectives, subject areas, grade levels, including an administrator in the video. So it's short, it's like 5 minutes or so. So check that out. I also am sharing a video of a lesson I did with 6th grade students, and the final product was writing a book about fractions. And you'll see in the video several different ways that I'm using technology to support that goal. And the book was electronic, but we did I did print them out and have them bound for the students who they had to decide which was the best. And so they had to go through and analyze and give some critiques about each other's books, and it was a collaborative project. I include demographical information so you can see who's in the class. And just so you know, and I'm going to share it now, but obviously you won't remember it probably by the time you get to it. But that class had 32 students, 12 female, 20 male. 21 were free and reduced lunch, 9 were special ed, 1 had a hearing loss, 1 was on autism spectrum disorder, on the autism spectrum, 5 were gifted. Ethnic makeup, 18 black, 4 Hispanic, 5 multiracial, 5 white. 2 were monitored, ELL. Um, some of the students in special ed were in self-contained classes. It only came to my class for connections, or what we call electives, for the only general education class. This class was also at the very end of the day, and if you've ever worked with sixth graders, you know that immaturity and sleepiness often appear toward the end of the day more so than any other time. Since then, we have adjusted our scheduling where sixth graders are able to go to their elective courses earlier in the day, and this has helped with behavior as well as some academic components. But look for all of that information. As always, ask me if you have questions, and I look forward to seeing you in the classroom.